Hello, good afternoon, and welcome once again to your Wealth Class on Lagos Television. I'm Abayomi Opapulujo. Trading opened on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange today on a positive note, with what we currently see as per performances of equities on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. I can tell you that this is a shadow of what we shall be witnessing as soon as the elections 2019 are concluded. And so basically this week and the entire of next week are reserved for you to take all the necessary actions you will need to take as far as taking position in equities, because ultimately market stands to be extremely bullish, extremely profitable for those who can dare to take the action as we speak. Now, oftentimes here in Nigeria, what you get to see is a situation where when prices of equities are low, people shy away. They panic, they exercise a measure of fear, and so they do not invest. Instead of them investing, they continue to complain, standing at the corner. But at the end, when the prices of equities eventually gather momentum and begin to run, that is when you see this mad rush. People begin to rush in. And the truth is, for those who dared to dabble in the market when everyone was looking the other way, it would be the opportunity for them to sell to those who would just be rushing into the market. In the last 1 year, plus or minus, the only issue with the Nigerian market had been the fears as per 2019 elections. Because if you want to look at the market critically, I can tell you that almost all the equities that are listed reported fantastic first quarter, second quarter, third quarter earnings to the market last year, talking about their 2018 accounts. And as we speak, shortly after the election, we would also see an influx of results released to the market, and some of these results stand to be positive in earnings. And you know that as we speak also, any year, the way, depending on the way you look at the market, the most bullish period, the thickest period in the market will always be the season starting from the end of March. Then it could extend sometimes to April, to May, to June. Why? Because that is when most of listed equities will rush in to release their audited report. You need also to understand this basic fact that there are ways by which the market respond to release of results. For example, when first quarter results are released, they don't come in with dividend payout. They just come in with the earning performances. So the rate at which prices respond to such results would be mined. And then second quarter, to some of them, they will come with interim dividend. And so the way the market respond to to such results also a little bit mind. And then when you talk about third quarter, very important, because if you can get this first, the second, the third quarter result, you will actually begin to forecast what the possibilities will be in the audited report. Now, when it comes to the audited report, because now, you know, the first, the second, and the third quarter results, except for those that will come in with interim dividend, come in without being audited, most often it is just management accounts that we get to see. But when you talk about the full year report, all the results that we'll see at the market arena would have been audited. And in most cases, this result also will have been scrutinized by regulators, particularly among those that have such strong regulators, particularly the banks and insurance companies. And so because these results have been scrutinized, because these results have been audited, investors can take informed decision and decide to stay probably for a long time or a short term with them. More much more than all this. These results most often will come with dividend payout. For example, now, yes, January has been very difficult and we've been able to navigate through. We are now in February, and some of the expenses of December and another set of expenses will be coming at Easter. So when some of these companies now come in with dividend, definitely the rate of response of the market is expected to be spontaneous and sharper than those other 3 quarters. So the period we are talking about now, there are so many factors that are working in favor of the market, which is, one, the elections 2019 will have been over. Number two, the audited report that have been released to the market now stand to be very positive. And there is this fact that most people are not considering yet. Now, the way it works in the market is that when you get to see or hear, you must be able, as investors, to sit down, as an investor, to sit down, analyze what you are getting to see, what you are getting to hear. For example, now, in the last couple of months, it's been discussions in and out between the labor force and the federal government. At the last count, what we got to hear was that federal government has agreed to paying 30,000 naira minimum wage, and maybe to the state government, what we got to hear was that 27,000 naira has been approved by the Council of State. And as at upper week now, the House of Representatives have even sat to approve that. So we are waiting for the upper legislative arm, which is the Senate, to sit and deliberate on that. Apparently, this, we believe, will pass through whatever readings they will need to give. Now, has anybody sat down to begin to analyze what the impact of this improvement in the earnings power of the Nigerian workers at the state level and at the federal level would be on the Nigerian economy and ultimately the stock market? Now, the way you should look at it is that somebody that was earning 18,000 naira suddenly will now begin to earn 30,000 naira. That is 12,000 naira additional income. So what is the fellow going to do with the 12,000 naira? Is he going to keep it in the bank, or she's going to keep it in the bank? No, most often what you get to see is that lifestyles will begin to change and things like that. And so the way it will work is that ultimately liquidity system in the economy will improve, and when liquidity system within the economy improves, there is no way the stock market will not be a net beneficiary. Why? Because most of the things we get to buy, maybe fuel, maybe food items, and some of those things, even clothing in some cases, maybe healthcare, delivery, and all those, you will have no choice than to patronize companies that are listed on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. And so basically, that is the wisdom in investing in the stock market. Guess what? Some of these things I'm telling you as introductory part of this presentation today are already contained on the pages of Stockswatch Weekly newspaper. And so the paper, as we speak, is on the vendor. So make sure you are able to get a copy of Stockswatch Weekly newspaper for this week. Of course, there are so many other information in there that will make the paper a must buy for you and does not expire. You know, sometimes they say newspaper, by the time it is probably 12 o'clock or 2 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the evening, for some newspapers, they are already expired because some of the information in there would have expired, would have been circulated. But when it comes to Stockswatch Weekly newspaper, there are some data that are contained on the pages of the newspaper that you will still be needing in the next 5 years as references. There are some articles that are contained there on children, on kiddies, on youth, on women, on entrepreneuring, and all those. I tell you that such information, such write-ups, such articles on retirement, as a matter of fact, I may bold to say that as far as retirement is concerned in this country, Stockswatch is still the best platform to get the best of motivation, the best of ideas, and the best of analysis on retirement planning. And so it makes the newspaper such that everyone should actually get. And some of this information don't expire, and they will not expire at all. I expect the numbers you can call as far as getting the newspaper to appear on the screen as we speak. All right, so make a call to those numbers, and they will be able to give you a lead and direction on where, how to get the newspaper for today. Right? Just watch out on the screen. I expect that the numbers to appear on the screen now. Right? So now, leaving Stockswatch weekly newspaper, let me just do a quick review of African stock markets for the month that just ended, January 2019. Now, looking at where the African stock markets close as at 31st of December 2018 relative to where they closed as at 31st of January 2019, I can tell you that it was more or less a bullish scenario, bullish performances for virtually all the markets across the African continent. Why? Of the 17 markets that we tracked, I think 14 of them ended in the positive region. They ended in the green. Of course, that is not to say that mid-month, at least a number of days or weeks within the month of January, some of them did not come below where they started from, but largely only 4 markets across the African continent ended in the red. All other 13 markets of the 17 that we covered actually ended in the green. And so, talking about the market that was the best overall for the month of January 2019, it was the market in Kenya, and it is represented by the Nairobi Stock Exchange, which grew by 9.71% in the month of January. And so, you know, when you talk about the economy of the Eastern African country, talking about Kenya now, it's actually not looking bad. The country is actually looking inwards. They are reducing how much they spend on import, and they are planning to export more. And when you talk about also tourism, Kenya is one of the most attractive economy in the African continent. So all these are working together to favor the market in Kenya. So for the month under review, the month of January 2019, the market in Nairobi was atop all others in the African continent. Uganda, relatively a small country, but again, the market is not looking bad, growing 9.38% in the month of January 2019. The market in Mauritius also was up 9.29% in the month of January. The market in Zambia and that of Zimbabwe were all up in the month of January. And the month when you talk about the market in Zimbabwe now, you talk about an economy that is struggling, an economy that used to have lots of foreigners, and then and they have to leave gradually. A country that experienced change of government, do I say twice now in the last 2 or 3 years or thereabout. You know, the former president that stayed, if I'm not mistaken, maybe he was even there before I was born or something like that. But as we speak now, the market is relatively stable. But, you know, it wasn't as if the market in Zimbabwe did not also see red at all within the month of January. But at the end of the month, to close the month of January 2019, the market in Zimbabwe eventually recovered and began to look green. All right, now if you are asking me what market should you be looking at across the African continent, my first response to you will be the Nigerian market. Not necessarily because of what the Nigerian market had done in the month of January or so far so good in 2019, because when you talk about the Nigerian stock market, the market month on month till the end of January was down 2.78%. As a matter of fact, analytically, when you want to rate market performances across the African continent, going by the performances of the indicators, that is the broad indicators in Nigeria, the All-Share Index, I would say that the market in Nigeria was the third least in performance. I don't want to say was performance, all right? BRVM, the market in Cote d'Ivoire, and which also comprises the market of other 4 other component countries in the African continent, actually was the worst in performance, and then the market in Nigeria was the third in the negative or the other performance. But you see, that is where your selection should start from. Why? You are a Nigerian. I keep saying every time, why is it that the market comes down, or why is it that the market goes up? Very simple. The prices of equities in our market will go up if all of us with 10,000, 2,000, 30,000, 100,000, 1 million, 2 million, and all those should come in, invest strategically in these equities, and then we allow our money to run there. The market will go up. But when we all rush in and begin to sell, what do we expect? So when it's just simple market economics, though I didn't do economics so much, but what we're told in the elementary economics class is that when there is a demand, effective demand, that is the kind of demand that is backed with money, what you get to see is a situation where there would be an upsurge in the prices of goods and services. That is the way it works in the stock market. Because what do we call stock market or prices of equities? What we get to see as far as the prices of equities are concerned, the way they move up, the way they also decline, are nothing but the rate at which investors, market operators, everyone around the market arena respond to changes in the information circle around the market arena. That is the way these things work. So when there are a lot of good information, positive indicators, and people rush in to invest, prices will go up. And then when the reverse become the case, people begin to sell. So what do we see? We see prices also are declining. So in other words, the markets across the African continent that are deserving of your attention include the Nigerian market. Not because of what the market has done, so far so good this year, but what the market stands to do and what we can see going forward, particularly between the end of February running to May, knowing fully well that by May 29th, believing God, that there will be a change in government, either from incumbent to incumbent or from incumbent to another. But there would be change of governance. So if that is the case, you should expect a lot to happen within the Nigerian market. All right. The next market that is deserving of your attention is the market in Kenya and probably the market in Zimbabwe. So far, so good on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange today. As I can still see, market indicators are still looking up. Only 2 indicators, that is Lotus and NSC Insurance, are looking down. Every other indicators are currently looking up. All right, having introduced the program today, we will be looking majorly at not just the last week, but equities you should be considering for strategic positioning and investment, even as we speak, particularly this week and next week. So I'm going on a short break now. When I return, it will be critical equity analysis and recommendation. All right? No hold there, and you don't get it better anywhere. So don't change this television channel, because I'm going to be right back.